You almost certainly know someone like this. The neighbor who complains about everything, who scowls at small infractions, who seems permanently irritated by the world and everyone in it. It is easy to dismiss such a person as simply unpleasant, a sour old soul who chose to be difficult. But what if that hardness was never the whole story? What if, behind the rigid rules and the constant complaints, there was a person in deep pain, someone who had loved enormously and lost almost everything, and who no longer knew how to be soft in a world that had taken so much? That possibility sits at the center of a story that has moved millions of readers around the world. That story is A Man Called Ove by the Swedish author Fredrik Backman, a novel that became a global phenomenon for its rare blend of humor and heartbreak. It follows a rigid, rule-obsessed man whose life has narrowed into bitterness and isolation, and it slowly reveals the grief and love hidden beneath his prickly surface. What begins as a comedy about a grumpy man becomes one of the most tender explorations in recent fiction of loneliness, loss, and the quiet power of human connection to bring someone back to life. The book begins as a careful study of grief disguised as anger. Ove's irritability, his obsession with order, his harsh judgments of his neighbors are slowly revealed to be the armor of a man who has lost the person he built his entire life around. The author shows how grief does not always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like rage, like rigidity, like a desperate need to control the small things because the big things have spun beyond control. This is a profound psychological truth. Pain frequently wears a mask that pushes other people away, and the person who seems hardest to love is often the one most in need of it. Have you ever judged someone for being difficult without ever wondering what loss might be hiding underneath their hardness? The novel also explores the way meaning and purpose are tied to being needed. Ove's life has lost its shape because the roles that once gave it structure are gone. He no longer feels useful to anyone, and that uselessness is quietly unbearable to him. But as new neighbors stumble into his life, needing his help with the small practical things he is good at, something begins to shift. The story examines how being needed, having a reason to get up and a person to help, can pull someone back from the edge of despair. It suggests that purpose is not a grand abstraction, but something woven into the daily fabric of being useful to others. It raises a gentle question worth sitting with. When was the last time being needed by someone gave your own day a reason and a shape? One of the book's most powerful themes is the way community forms almost against a person's will. Ove does not want connection. He resists it at every turn, treating his neighbors as nuisances to be tolerated. And yet, slowly, a found family assembles around him, drawn in by his reluctant competence and held by his hidden tenderness. The author shows how human beings need each other, even when they insist they do not. How isolation, however fiercely chosen, rarely makes a person whole. The story explores how connection often arrives uninvited, breaking through the walls a wounded person has built, and how being pulled back into the web of other lives can quietly save someone. It asks whether the walls you build to protect yourself might also be the walls keeping out the very thing you need. The structure of the novel deepens its emotional impact in a clever and moving way. The story alternates between Ove's grim present and tender glimpses of his past, gradually revealing the man he once was, the love that shaped him, and the losses that hardened him. This back and forth means that every irritable moment in the present is reframed by what you learn about the past.
The grumpy man at the start becomes by the end someone you understand and ache for. The author uses this structure to teach a lesson in empathy itself. The more of someone's story you know, the harder it becomes to dismiss them. It quietly suggests that everyone you find difficult is carrying a past you cannot see, and that judgment softens into compassion the moment that past comes into view. There is also a deeply affecting emotional arc at the heart of the book, a slow thaw. Ove begins frozen, closed, and alone, and through a series of small human encounters, he gradually opens, reconnects, and rediscovers a reason to live. The story does not pretend this is easy or instant. It shows the resistance, the setbacks, the stubborn pull back toward isolation. But it also shows that a closed heart can open again, that even a person who has decided they are done with the world can be drawn back into it by patience, kindness, and persistence.
This is the novel's most hopeful gift. It insists that no one is truly beyond reach, that warmth offered steadily and without judgment can reach even the most fortified heart. The book also examines with great gentleness the value of the ordinary, unglamorous virtues. Ove is not charming or impressive. He is competent, reliable, and quietly principled in a way the modern world often overlooks. He fixes things, he shows up, he keeps his promises. The author treats these humble qualities as genuinely heroic, suggesting that the steady, dependable people who hold up the lives around them deserve far more recognition than they usually receive. It is a quiet rebuke to a culture that celebrates the loud and the flashy, and a tender tribute to the unshowy people whose constancy makes other lives possible. It invites you to consider who the quiet, reliable people in your own life are, and whether they have ever been truly thanked. The small rituals and routines that fill Ove's days carry quiet symbolic weight throughout the book. His daily inspections, his rigid schedules, his insistence that things be done a certain way are more than the habits of a difficult man. They are the scaffolding holding up a life that has lost its center. The author shows how routine can become a way of surviving grief, a structure a person clings to when the meaning has drained out of everything else. There is real tenderness in this portrayal. The rules that make Ove seem rigid are also the things keeping him upright. It invites you to look more gently at the rigid, controlling behavior of others, and to wonder what loss those routines might be quietly holding together. What habits in your own life are really there to keep you steady through something you have not fully grieved? The book also explores how small acts of kindness accumulate into something that can change a life. No single gesture from Ove's neighbors transforms him. It is the steady, patient accumulation of being included, being needed, being refused the right to remain alone that slowly thaws him. The author suggests that rescuing a person is rarely a dramatic event. More often, it is a long series of small, persistent kindnesses offered by people who simply will not give up. This is a deeply hopeful idea about how human beings save one another, not through grand intervention, but through the unglamorous patience of continuing to show up. It raises a question worth carrying. Who has quietly, persistently shown up for you in ways you only recognized later? There is also a meditation on legacy running beneath the story, on what a quiet, ordinary life leaves behind. Ove is not famous or remarkable by any public measure, yet the story reveals how profoundly his presence has shaped the people around him. The author seems to suggest that the truest legacy is not achievement or recognition, but the love planted in other lives, the steadiness offered, the people helped along the way.
It is a gentle reframing of what it means for a life to matter, one that has nothing to do with status and everything to do with how a person treated those within their reach. It leaves you wondering what quiet legacy your own ordinary kindnesses might be building in the lives around you. The book also gives quiet attention to the way a single stray creature, an animal with nowhere else to go, can crack open a closed heart. The reluctant bond that forms between Ove and a wandering cat becomes one of the story's gentlest threads, a relationship neither of them asked for and neither can quite walk away from. The author uses it to show how caring for something more vulnerable than yourself can reawaken tenderness in a person who believed they had none left to give. It is a small detail with a large meaning, suggesting that being responsible for another living thing can pull someone back to life. It invites you to consider how often love sneaks in through the side door, in the form of something that simply needed you. In the end, A Man Called Ove leaves you with a softened heart and a changed eye. It makes you look again at the difficult people around you, wondering what grief or loneliness might be hiding beneath their hardness. It reminds you that being needed gives life shape, that community can save a person who refuses to be saved, and that even a frozen heart can thaw. A story that teaches you to see a grumpy stranger as a grieving human being has given you a small lesson in compassion. Books aren't just stories, they're mirrors that help us understand ourselves better. Comment below with the book you would like explored next and the difficult person in your own life you have come to understand differently over time. If this thoughtful kind of book analysis resonates with you, consider liking and subscribing so more of it can find you. This video uses AI-generated audio and visuals for educational purposes only. This is just one reader's personal thoughts and interpretations.